It's a great title, Gratefulness. Let's save that for another Sunday, shall we? You don't know this about me, so well, maybe you do. Some of you may have intuited it, but one thing that I've always maintained in this role is authenticity, honesty, and transparency to where I am. And in other words, if I'm not feeling it, then it's really hard for me to get up and offer a message that feels disingenuous or less than connected with the truth that I'm actually embodying and feeling. This happened, it's happened several times in my ministry lives, which is actually accurate. And the last time that it came up for me when I was in Santa Barbara, I decided I needed to leave the ministry for an entirely different set of circumstances and reasons that are not true here. But what I did learn was that when that's happening for me, then I need to do my inner work, and I need to get in touch with what's going on with me and get in touch with the are you trying to get me in the picture here? Oh, I think that one's capturing it over there. So the reason that I want to share this with you is to let you know that I'm sort of going through an evolutionary leap, I think, right now. I'm calling it in the most positive terms possible, that I am growing in my faith and my understanding of spiritual truth. And where it's left me is sort of in between and not a really solid place to stand. In other words, I'm feeling like some of what I held to be the truth, I'm starting to see through it. I'm seeing that it's sort of part of the, what I would say, it's part of the phenomena of spirituality, which would be like beliefs and well-worn phrases that at one time seemed to be a reflection of how I felt. And now some of those same words and phrases feel like they are, they still sound lovely, but they don't feel like they are a reflection of my inner experience. And so when I am called upon to give words to my spiritual faith and where I am, it becomes extremely difficult to stand up in front of people and to say words that may sound good, but there's a disconnect here in my heart and in my being. So as you know, I don't have any notes today because I couldn't write a talk. But I thought it might just be okay with you guys that I just share this experience for the chance that it might have been your experience at some point, or maybe your experience sometime in the future. So, I'm just laying bare my experience and my current state of consciousness, and to let you know that I'm committed to seeing this through. What I mean by that is, it would be very easy for me to say, I think I'm going to take another break from ministry because it's uncomfortable to stand up here and do what I'm doing right now. It's uncomfortable to stand up and do this kind of professing to have a inspirational message when you're not feeling inspired. I'm not a particularly good actor, nor do I want to be a good actor in this role. I think what really got me started in the beginning, which was nearly 30 years ago now, was Reverend Richard, and he would tell you exactly what he was going through in his life. And he gave permission for us to have our human experience, which, in other words, to give permission to have doubts. Sometimes what I think is maybe the dark side of unity is that it tends to just focus and put all the credence and elevates the notion of the light and takes a, pardon the pun, dim view of the dark, of the shadow, of those things which are messy, human. I think that's disingenuous, at least it is from where I stand. And I think that if there is only one presence and one power in the universe, and we call it God, then that spirit is in all things. It can't be that there would be this presence that would be omnipresent and it wouldn't be in the feelings that we're having that maybe are less than happy, joy, or peaceful or loving. That doesn't mean that the truth in its full understanding wouldn't be an experience of peace and love. It just means that, through the filter of our own human perception, this illimitable truth expresses itself in different ways. And some of those ways we like, and some of those ways we don't. But the spirit is always there. And that's what gives me hope that even though I'm going through somewhat of a conflicted period right now and feeling somewhat more connected to the doubts of the spiritual path than I am my faith and understanding, I believe that the God that started this work in me will see it through to completion. And this is just one more phase in this ongoing evolution of consciousness that is, that is the trademark of living a conscious life. I don't think that there's any value in adopting a philosophy and then hiding behind it as a facade for your actual experience. And I think that the most good that I've ever done in my ministry work has been when I've been real with people, and then I've allowed people to be real with me, and then we have walked through, the valley of the shadow of doubt together. And so that's what I'm offering to you today, is that I'm not running away, but I do need to work with this. And I don't know how long it'll take for me to get on the other side of it. And it may mean that I give another message like this next week. I don't know. Or I might just be, out of it, or into another phase of this growth and unfoldment, which is, I highly embrace the notion that wherever we are, God is. And so if that's, flying high and happy and joy and optimistic, that's great. And if you're down in the dumps and you're sad and you're having difficulty finding goodness in life, God is there too, the truth is the truth is the truth. And so what I have noticed, and this is why I'm sort of professing this embracing of this sort of process, is that if I try to push away the feelings that I don't like or I'm not very proud of, and I don't want to presence those in front of people, then I find that it gets worse. That the more I push it away, it's sort of like you make it more real. Because now if I'm pushing back on something that I don't like, even though it's just a thought or a feeling, which doesn't have a whole lot of substance to it, but if I push back, if I say, I don't want this, and I resist it, I make it even more real. I give it more substance, and I give it more credence, because why would you need to defend against something that wasn't real, right? That's something that was just passing and transient and ephemeral, which is what our feelings are and our thoughts are. It does feel somewhat like this is more than just a fleeting experience of confusion. It feels like it's more fundamental to my sense of being and how I experience my sense of being. I feel like it's sort of like unset jello, It's not liquid, but it's still not solid, It's in that in-between phase that if we can embrace it, and I have found in the past, if I embrace it, then I give space for what wants to happen to unfold and to continue. Whereas if I try to say, oh, I shouldn't feel this way, I know too much, I'm too experienced, I'm too too educated. I'm have all these words, and I could get up and I could give you great talk. But what I've been feeling the last few times that I've been with you is I feel like I have relied on my skill set rather than my authentic voice. And I can do that. But you deserve better. And I deserve to be real. So what that looks like, and I'll try to articulate this in terms of more specifics, is, every Sunday, we say this wonderful statement of faith: one presence, one power, one life, God. What has been happening for me is that I have been experiencing this sense of duality. Even in the midst of all that I know and all that we profess, that there's only one reality, there's only one thing going on, I have been thinking of God for too long as that which is apart from me. And if there's any prescription for suffering that I would give to anybody, is to have the notion that the good that you are seeking is something apart from you, or even a part of you, instead of the whole of you. And so the struggle that I have been having lately is this. My intention is to embody this truth and to know that I know, and that I don't have to convince myself that I know, that being is divine. And that being is me. It isn't a part of me. It isn't in me. It isn't a characteristic of me. It isn't an element of me. It isn't a phase of me. It isn't happen on some days and not others. It is the everyday, every moment, 24/7 reality of my being. And I'm feeling like that's wanting to move in to this space of consciousness that stands here. And there's a big part of me that would like to go back to the old way of looking outside of myself, which I've been really good at. So that's the journey, and it feels like I'm approximating sort of a breakthrough time. And part of me feels like that should happen in the space of non-doing. In other words, that I shouldn't be in this role. But that hasn't become clear to me yet. It still feels like there's value in me doing this with you. But if it goes on too long, then I might need to take a break. Because, like I said, I'm kind of like the Hippocratic oath, sort of like do no harm is the importance. And to bring inspiration to you is what you should be getting from your minister. So, but for today, it's just shameless self-disclosure. It's putting my current human condition out here, and letting you know that my intention is to be true to my spiritual path. And if I'm true to my spiritual path, I will be better for all concerned. That my work here will be enhanced by the work that I do on myself, in my inner work. And it's really uncomfortable. So I don't know if you can tell if I'm feeling uncomfortable, but I'm feeling uncomfortable. And now I would just open it up for comments or questions, because that was the other thing I wanted to say this morning. So let me just say that, and then we'll do if you want to ask a question. Denise, as you know, is a transitional consultant, and so she works with Unity Ministry. She's worked with, I think, 15 around the country, mostly on the West Coast. And so she gets to see a lot of ministries that are going through those transitions, like you've been through yours. You've been through several, of course. And what she's noticed, and what I've sort of noticed from my limited experience with ministries, and what I'm reading, is that this model for ministry is being questioned by a lot of people who particularly people who are younger than us. And what I mean by the model ministry, I'm talking about pulpit ministry, where people come on a Sunday morning and they listen to a minister give a talk. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and those of us in this room probably feel there's no reason why it should become obsolete. But the truth is that more and more people are finding their spiritual inspiration through many, many sources that are outside of a room like this, right? I mean, today, you can find the most inspiring messages on the internet. No charge. You don't have to leave the comfort of your home. You don't have to get out of your pajamas. You know, you can be sipping on your cappuccino while hearing great spiritual messages. And the other thing is that a lot of younger people are not as interested in the talking head. They're more interested in applied spirituality, right? In other words, they're looking for an opportunity. They want to hear the truth, but then they also want to reflect it in their own lives and then converse with somebody about it or dialogue with it so that it then is more of a shared spiritual experience rather than just a didactic experience with a transmitter and a receiver, you know, the sort of the dualistic notion. But to create sort of a gestalt of understanding that comes from people sharing the truth and then sharing their own experience of the truth and then sort of bouncing these sort of perspectives off of each other in a way that sort of elevates the truth beyond a personal experience. But which is really, of course, the truth is not a personal experience. It can be personally experienced, but the truth is a universal experience. Yes, one presence, one power everywhere. So the reason I'm bringing that up is that, and it's not that anything has to be done necessarily about that, but it is one of the dynamics that we're dealing with right now in this particular time that we live in. And the pandemic is only sort of, what would you say? I guess has sort of enhanced that experience that it's not necessary for us to be gathered in the same room. And I think that we can learn from that. And what we can learn from that is that we don't have to be attached to this being the only way that people can grow spiritually. As much as we may love this, it may be something that is becoming somewhat obsolete. And we can be open to a hybrid of this. In other words, there can be this, and then there can be this, you know, the Zoom, the virtual audience of people. And we don't know how many people. I guess we could find out how many people are joining us. But I just read something this morning. James Twyman is a friend of mine, and some of you may know James Twyman. He started this community down in Mexico, in Ajijic, Mexico, Lake Chapala, called Namaste Village. And it's a spiritual community where people actually live in this sort of I'm going to call it a compound. That sounds like a cult thing. It's not. It just happens to be, it's downtown Ajijic, but there's like so many buildings there. They have big walls and gates and things. And they built casitas inside of there. And I think about 12 people or so live there. And then they have morning sessions of spirituality and then Sunday services. But he said that now he has hundreds of people that are joining them online. So here they have this very small little community, and it's really only for the residents. That seems very limiting. But because of technology, they have a congregation of hundreds of people. So there's an example where, you know, the blessing of all people gathering together, the shoulder to shoulder, the heart to heart, the face to face works for those people who are engaged in that and want that experience. And yet there's this expanded sense of connection beyond the walls of that community, with the intention that this message here, you know, doesn't require you to make some sort of a physical commitment. How that's all going to work in terms of the kind of financial support that communities have relied on in the past, when people are not in the same room, remains to be seen. That's one of the challenges. But if it's a divine idea, what we know about that is that it will find its support, right? It will come out. So anyway, so I don't know why I shared that exactly, but it's sort of the evolution of my consciousness has included this notion of maybe in some sense I'm wondering whether what I'm doing is still necessary. What I'm doing is still contemporaneous with the evolution of consciousness that is calling forth maybe new modalities of communicating the message, and what does that ask of me? What is that? Where is it for me to find my place? And well, let me say that I'm perfectly fine with this as long as it's working. And what I mean by that is that it's working for you and it's working for me. Because I think we have probably 20 years left before this model will probably completely transition into something that looks different. Probably won't be any pews, probably will be chairs and be sitting up in little circles, and it'll look different than this. It'll be a hybrid until it becomes whatever it's going to become. So now, questions or comments or concerns or whatever. It's all good. Star.
Even though when we had to do everything online, it was a good substitute.
Mm-hmm.
But the communion that I found in communities like this, and we get to go back to eating together soon, right? Sharing food, which I'll start bringing my great soups, you guys. I'm well known for them. Not only the message, I used to say, where Denise is at now, people would say, why do you go there? I said, well, it's 50% the message, it's 50% the music, and it's 50% the food. And I know that's 150%, but that's how I felt when I left. So I personally hope we're not going to a meta-universe, because I don't think it allows us to really connect.
Yeah.
Really have a full hour, 2.5, 3 together, and sharing experiences that we can't get sitting at home. So that's a little scary to me.
The community aspect, the
community
the connection aspect,
is huge.
Yeah. Right, and that is, and I think that's still alive. I don't think that has faded at all. I think it's just the model of the pulpit ministry model doesn't have the same singular appeal that it had, say, 20, 30 years ago and going back. Partly because of our virtual community that has allowed these messages to be transmitted in other forms. But
I love getting up and still staying in my pajamas and watching the thing and making coffee and drink it. That's good.
Right. That's what I wanted to do this morning.
I know.
But Spirit said, go get your clothes on. You get in there. You face it.
I get it. I know being present is an effort for all of us. But
yes.
Are you getting nervous because of your transition that's coming up? Because I know you guys are going to be moving on, right? Denise is done, or are you staying around?
We're going to stay. We bought a house in Washington, so
I didn't know that for sure.
We are not moving.
Okay.
No, we're not. And Denise's changes. She's only agreeing to do local ministry. So, her next one is that has yet to be publicly said. So I can't say, but it's commutable from where we live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
What are you, the amazing Karnak?
Yeah.
Anyway, so
thank you, Star.
Yeah.
Anyone else have
and your message, even today, I mean, you're saying, oh, you don't feel like you're inspiring, but you are because of your honesty. Yeah. Just telling your story. And you know I'm all about that, right? Just telling the story, whether it's a little gritty, whether it's fun or whatever, to me is is fabulous.
Well, someone said that the universe is not made up of atoms, it's made up of stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really true.
Anybody else?
I'm kind of new to this being here, but I love it. I love that you're so open and sharing what you're going through, because we all go through it. So we can look at us and go, whoa, we're kind of all the same. And I really appreciate that. For us who like physical people,
Yeah.
this is for us. I have people who would sit home and think they're getting it, but I can't get it at home alone. Just like family, I have to feel your essence, your presence. And like a parent, we have to have that person we look up to and we listen to a little bit better than our friends. And that's the model that I like, because I can listen to you a little bit better than I could to somebody else, whether that's right or wrong. I get it, I feel it, and
that's good to know that. It's really great to know that, you know, and to honor that, because this what I was sharing here today wasn't to make like one better than the other or anything like that. Just noting that this transition that's going on, this evolution of sort of spiritual community that, you know, is definitely going on. And it's good for us to know it. Whether we don't have to say, "Oh yeah, let's change everything."
Yeah.
And if we know what works for us, I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
And then follow that.
Yeah. And I just appreciate a place that I can go, and as I spiritually grow, it's nice that I can find a place that I can grow with.
Yes.
And
yes.
And you guys seem to be it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. That was great. Yeah.
Charles, is that you having your hand up or you're offering the microphone?
Is up.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, this way. I've observed in my life that most people don't like to be in that place of the unknown. It's sort of like the old movie where the guy is driving the kids to the family get together at Christmas, and the kids keep saying, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" Instead of observing the lovely scenery as they flow through. I like the unknown. I find it exciting. I don't have to know ahead of time, because that experience for me of observing me and the universe and God getting closer as I flow through is so exciting. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. And so for me, I do like the community aspects of it, but I could enjoy those community aspects by being in a circle and chatting with others, with a coffee pot in the middle of us, or whatever. So I'm more open to the flow and the experience, and not trying to say it has to be a certain way. It's just because God is there with me all the time. I think God is laughing with us all the time. I try to laugh as much as I can, because I think God finds what we are doing so terribly ridiculous in a spiritual sense. But we do it, and so he laughs with us and walks with us and takes care of us when we need it. And I love the unknown.
Thanks, Charles. Yeah.
So I am right there with you, knowing that experiential one for that next generation is what they're really after, because that's where I was supposed to be this weekend.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I realized when you get to a certain point is to do something in a group is better than doing it alone. When you take a class online and you don't get any opportunity for interaction and feedback, you don't get the depth of the experience. It's more of a flat dimension. It's almost two-dimensional. But one of the things I discovered when I started joining Unity years ago was the fact that, you know, I used to get dressed up to go out on Saturday night, and now I find myself laying out clothes for Sunday morning. Now, they're not the best clothes, and thank you for everybody that buys my wardrobe, but, you know, I have so many to pick from, and yet I want to go comfortable. But it's about where you want to be in your relationship with that experience of the divine. I like it where I'm a little bit challenged, but I'm also brought into the experience to think outside that box, because Spirit's always expanding into the infinite.
Well, I believe that, yeah. And I think that's well said, and I think that's maybe the caveat in all of this, is that we need to be listening, and not just listening to, the surface mind, but, listening to something that feels real and more authentic than, in other words, to know that we're on the right trajectory of growth and evolution. It's to notice that, this is more of an inclusive idea as opposed to an exclusive idea. It's less about, it still is about the perceived me, which is an illusion, but but the more we can move into this, what is the infinite calling? And when we did our visioning for the board, we asked, what is God's idea of unity in the Olympics? We really don't want to get into, well, I want this and I want that, and that's okay farther down, but initially the grand design needs to be, what's the spiritual outpicturing of this community, and what would it look like? What would we be doing? And how would we be doing it? So that sort of specificity comes after the insight that is from Spirit, from the truth of us. And because we can all have opinions and preferences, but that would have us going in many different directions. But if we we fall into this notion of let's all get into the consciousness of truth as much as we can, into love, into peace, into wholeness, and to feel that, and then from that say, how should we do this work? How should we do spiritual community? And I think if we do that, we'll stay contemporaneous with not only the divine idea for this community, but also the contemporaneous opportunities that come from the modern day with the technology and everything else that's possible. So, yeah. Did you have a thought too?
Yeah, I have several feelings about this. One is that the importance of the spiritual community. We form not only a group of people, but we form a quantum field of spirituality that we send out into the world by gathering together. This is kind of a new notion, but it's something that I've felt a long time, from why have over millennia people wanted to gather together for this community, and the power and the energy that is not tangible, visible, but it is tangible in the work that happens when we spread our love, peace, and joy out into the world as intentional in our community. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is, yes, through this last year and a half, we have learned that we have to be resilient and growth and change. And one of the biggest growing groups of young people say that they are spiritual but not religious.
Correct, yes.
So that's a huge group of people that are identifying that way. So we need to find ways to be that hybrid that creates the spiritual community and puts it out there, and a way for it to come back, for us to do that work and still connect with people. I think we're trying to do that with Oak Ridge because we don't have a building, but we are putting out the message of you are the Christ, you are the divine. And so I think that what you just said about how does God see us, what is God's idea of our community doing the work, the light, the holding of the peace that the world so desperately needs.
Beautiful, yeah.
So
We don't
know all the answers.
So there's this collective good that extends beyond us,
Right.
that you're considering in how we want to frame this and reformulate it if we're going to change.
And we're going to learn how that's going to work for us. I think that's evolving.
Yeah.
Just as, many of us didn't know about Zoom 5 years ago, but now it's, our vernacular. We will learn how We just have to know what. And the message that you bring about the what, you know, is very, very important. The process is wonderful for us to all go through.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as we have a center, we can go on.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful.
Larry, I'd just like to say, as I shared with you last week, I've been through what you're going through.
Yes.
And I appreciate what you've done here today. I really do, to bring it out, because as a church, as a congregation, as a group of people, we need nourishing. And we all are going through a phase of what you're talking about. All of us know that the world is not as it was. It's different. And we don't really know what to do with it yet. And so we're a little bit in the air also. And to have someone like you to stand up there and to say, well, yeah, you are too. You know, you're kind of, I don't know what to do yet. And I think that speaks toward our faith, that together we can find out. You know, whether it's unknown is what Charles was talking about.
Yeah.
And to be able to have you to share it with us, to share your journey, gives us strength. And hopefully you aren't going to back off to, you know, go to try to examine it again.
Well, I turned around about 5 times on the way here today, so in my mind anyway.
Yeah.
You realize the now moment is the destination and the journey is what it's all about. And when
Yeah.
you share
Yeah.
that, we get to be in that experience with you,
Yeah.
in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's what we need all the time, is to be in the moment with the remembrance that there is no separation. And what a great way to point out that even now, so there's even more connection. We just have to tap into it, because those out there that are coming up through the fields already have a connection. They don't need the formality. But they're going to get to a point where they're like me, walk through a doorway and can't remember my purpose or my place or my connection with God. They're going to want that. It's kind of like that movie Field of Dreams that Donna pointed out the other day. There's that taste that's going to stay there forever, and you said it, at least for another 20 years, where they're going to need a remembrance. And after that, we're going to be on autopilot, baby, and this is going to be a holodeck. You know that, right? Because everything we visualized has happened and is still happening, because that's how the divine works. That's just my soapbox, but you know, we've been taught through all of this there's no separation, and you do that. You bring us back into that congealment.
Well, I think that's what there's 2 things going on, you know, about me sharing what I'm sharing today. Was that one part of me was like really worried about being dishonest with you, and then you being disappointed in me. I mean, okay, we all come from it honestly, right? Our story, those who we would hope to get approval from. And, you know, I've outgrown that in large part, but I feel that this is a sacred responsibility, what I do. And so I feel that it needs to be done with as much integrity and clarity and intentionality as possible toward the goal of us awakening to the truth of who we are. And when I don't feel that I can do that, then I'm not just going to do a replication of what an inspiring talk would be from a place of my mind, because I have the capacity to do that. All of you do, probably, in some sense, because whatever skill set you have, you can put something out there, but you know when that's your authentic expression versus you're just fulfilling sort of an expectation that's disconnected from the truth of who you are, or the heart of you, or the passion that you carry for truth. And I've been a passionate teacher of truth for many years. And when the passion started to go down in Santa Barbara, and I was feeling physically exhausted, so that was what's not true for now. I knew that I needed to step away. It was a large community, and there was a lot of sadness, and some people were very angry. I mean, you probably know this because you've been part of these transitions before. People are angry, and they feel abandoned by their minister, because you get cast in this role of being one that people relied on for their inspiration. And there's a bit of a dysfunction in that, It's not healthy. That's why the ministry-centric model is dying out, and communities are going more to a community-centric. In other words, everyone serves everyone else in this notion of spiritual insight and exchange and sharing. And so you don't look just like to one person to that, although you still might have one person who gives the message, but then everyone gets together in dialogue and shares their own take on it, kind of like we're doing right now. Because I could have got up here and just said, here's how I'm feeling, but now this is enhanced by hearing all these different perspectives, because that's really what's going to serve this community, is an engaging, a collective appreciation of where we are and what does spirituality look like to you, and how are you served by this form or that form. So we may just want to do this for a while, for a couple of weeks even. I'll share some thoughts, some comments, some truths, and then just open it up and just see how it feels, because I think we will then be preparing ourselves for, this new version of spiritual community. You need more volume? I need more volume?
No, I wanted the microphone.
Oh, you want the microphone? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
As you should.
I just wanted to point out one thing that hasn't been spoken of yet, and yet it is so basic to why we come here, I hope anyway. Hugs. You don't get hugs over Zoom.
Virtual hugs don't cut it.
Just
She
don't
likes
hug.
personal touch points.
Yes.
That's true,
Hugs.
yeah.
You can have all of the great ideas, all of the great drama of whatever. We live that every day, the drama. But the one thing that we want to have is the hug. The physical touch, actually, of knowing that we matter to somebody. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you just don't go into Safeway and get that many people to hug you. I've noticed. Yeah. If you do, you get, Good. Yeah, I think that's true, and there is a limit to how technology can replace so much of what we feel, viscerally and intuitively. There's no app for that stuff yet, So that's okay. It's even like from that spiritual notion, like, well, since we're all spiritual beings, why do we even care about anything physical? Well, because we're still in bodies. And although the spirit needs nothing, right? The spirit is whole and complete and never gets sick, never ages, never gets tired, never gets anything in terms of wanting. And that's what we are in truth. But humanly, we're walking around, with these bodies and these minds that do need that sort of thing. So we're trying to live, respectfully, aligned with the truth, like Jesus said, in this world, but not of it. In other words, we know we're not ultimately of this world, but we are in the world. And when we're in the world, we eat and we gather, and those things feed us.
I was going to say thank you for being beautifully human. What a nice role
Thank you
model.
for receiving it, and so graciously.
And I know this is kind of cheesy because it is a tradition, but everybody raise your hands. We love you. We bless you, and we truly appreciate you. And we behold the Christ that you are. Amen.
Yay.
You want to take those beautiful thoughts, even though it wasn't a prepared, I want to say, message. You want to take us into a meditation with those thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do.